All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to True Crime Loser. How you doing today? That sounds pretty good. So, got a few things I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and we're going to start with by far my least favorite, Letecia Stauch. And I'm most likely this is the last time I'm going to talk about this woman, unless the interrogation footage is released. Other than that, after reading the arrest affidavit, not only did my interest in this case plummet, but I think my interest in life plummeted. But there's a few things that I forgot in my last video about the arrest affidavit that I think are worth mentioning. So, first, if you remember, her first story that she went with to try to get out of this, which I don't know if I can think of anyone that has a dumber story than this, so I guess that's fascinating. But if you remember, the first story was Gannon went to a friend's house, and they were like, okay, where's the friend? And she was like, ugh, shoot. All right, well, you know what? He actually didn't go to a friend's house. What I meant to say is I was raped by a Mexican construction worker named Eduardo. That's what I meant to say. And people in my last video, there was a few people that were like, you spelled it wrong. It's not Eduardo, it's Eduardo. And whoever said that needs to check their pictures because it is Eduardo. So, Eduardo. And then they were like, all right, well, Letecia, that also just makes 0 sense, you know? And then, so that's where I had said the story ended in my last video. This is where I forgot. So then, since that story bottomed out massively, she had to go with another one, which was that she was raped by a black guy. And what was his name? Quincy Brown. So after the first couple stories tanked incredibly hard, then what it's pretty obvious that she did is she went online and searched for a sex offender that's currently on the FBI's most wanted list. And then she copied and pasted that picture and she sent that to Gannon's dad and saying, this is the guy that raped me. And I know it's him because while the whole thing was happening, there was a piece of paper hanging out of his pocket that had his name on it. And by this point, everyone's like, what, Letecia? What are you doing? She has one of those faces that when you look at it, you can tell that nothing is happening behind her eyes. Like if you could see what she was thinking about, I think a lot of the time it would just be a completely blank screen. She just has that look of just like, I'm a little bit retarded, you know? And so she went to Petco that day. Then the story became she went to Petco that day, and then when she was on her way home, Quincy Brown, I might not have that name right, but it was something like that. The person on the most wanted sex offender list, she said as she was leaving Petco, he was laying in the middle of the road, and then as she tried to drive around him, he like attacked her or something. Well, then that story fell flat on its face because they had her phone ping out by this highway where they found evidence where they think she at least stashed Gannon for a while. So then she had to explain that. So then the story after went to a friend's house. Oh, wait, no, he didn't. I got raped by Eduardo. Oh, wait, sorry, no, I didn't. Oh, I got raped by the FBI's most wanted guy that was laying in the road. Oh, wait, no, I didn't. Sorry, I said all that. What I meant to say was Gannon and I were riding bikes out by the highway where, you found all that evidence, and Quincy Brown showed up, and a guy named Terrence, all of her um, all of her names are just like stereotypical race, like a guy named Terrence drove the black rapist to get me. It's just the whole thing is just stupid. And then right when you think that this woman can't be any dumber at all, while the detectives were going through all the evidence and the phone records and her internet search history. They came on a number that she called, and of course they're going to investigate, who is this? And so they find that the number is to a business called it's either fakepolygraphtest.com or fakelliedetectortest.com. Letecia went to fakelliedetectortest.com. Right there, that sums up Letecia's essence right there of just, can you picture just her dumb face in front of the blue light of the computer typing in fakepolygraphtest.com and being like, maybe this'll work. And I think what fakepolygraphtest.com, I think what it's normally used for is to try, for someone that's cheating on their spouse, to get the fake polygraph test, because in the description of the website, it's like, show your partner that you're not. And so what you do is you give them the questions and the answers to the questions, and then they print that out for you and then put it the letterhead of a local polygraph place in your city. So obviously Letecia has no idea what a real polygraph would look like. You know, we know from the Chris Watts one, they're question after question, and there's sets of questions, and they ask the same question over and over again, and they ask questions to establish truth, and the results of them are complicated and all, you know. And whoop, almost knocked it over. This one was just like, is your name Letecia? Yes. Is your birthday this? Yes. Did you kill your stepson? No. You know, it was like, and who was she planning to give that to? I guess her husband or something. It's like, Letecia, everything's coming up you. I think that you hurt my son. You're an idiot. And she's like, well, I went and took a polygraph test. They're like, with the FBI? No, I just went without anyone knowing. I just went and took one. Or imagine her giving that to the FBI. She's like, I took this accredited polygraph. There's 7 questions. I think the final thing that I will remember about Letecia is her answer when they asked her on TV with her back facing away, or with her back facing the camera. They asked her the classic, Letecia, if you could say anything to Gannon out there, what would it be? And she goes, I would say, Gannon, I am so happy for when you come back, because when you do, you're going to be able to tell everybody to apologize to me sincerely. And I feel like they like should have just taken the microphone from her, like, whoa, you know, calm down, Letecia. But other than that, she's toast. After reading the evidence they have against her, I don't know. I have very little interest in watching that trial. I think it's going to be pretty quick and easy. Like I said, I think she not only burned me out on this case, but possibly on just crime in general. But anyway, moving on to Lori Daybell. Very, very quick update on Lori Daybell. The Attorney General is taking over the whole case. So I was thinking that the whole COVID situation, depending on where you're at in the process of the trial and the crime, I think it could hurt or help the defendant going through it. If it's at the very beginning and it's maybe not even that big of a deal of a crime, they might just be like, during COVID, it's just everything's a nightmare, throw it out. But for where Lori is, I think she almost was like the worst time for her, because she got in jail and then the whole thing happened, and now I think it's going to slow down, and she's just in jail with all those people. It's not a great time to be. I think they're letting out a lot of the non-violent, but they're not going to let her out, so she's just going through COVID in jail. And the thing about, you got to think that both Lori and Chad are just positive that they're right. you know? They're like, we knew it. This is end times. The virus is here. The tornadoes are happening. I really have a feeling I can't wait for everything to just calm down. So they have that feeling of like, oh no, maybe this wasn't the time. Damn it. We blew it bad. All right, well, shoot, I guess. You know, I think right now they're still riding the high of we told you so. What did you guys expect, you know? And so I really want them to be fed some humble pie when in a few months from now when it just kind of eases out and it's like, yeah. Also, I think Chad's going to be arrested any day now. The Attorney General's going over Tammy's death, and you got to think the results of Tammy's autopsy are coming back some point soon, right? So that's going to be a nice scene, seeing him arrested, just him with the look of like, but I met my grandpa in La Jolla, and they're like, all right, watch your head, Chad, but I met my grandpa in La Jolla. So I think, like I said, I think COVID might be, in a way, buying that whole case more time so they can try to put the murder charges together on him. All right, moving along. All right, so something sparked my interest the other night that I wanted to share with you guys. So here in New York, regarding COVID, our death number is still pretty high every day, but what's looking good is the amount of people going to the hospital and the amount of people being transferred to the ICU is way down, which that's something, right? But a lot of people are still dying every day, which is tough, and you can't really do a funeral because big groups aren't meeting, and so a lot of, they said on the news, they're burying a lot of these bodies on an island called Hart Island, and I looked into Hart Island, and it's a pretty interesting place. And so there's drone footage right now during the whole COVID thing of they dug this big, massive grave. It's so sad, with a backhoe or something, and they're just stacking the standard issue, no frills, plywood coffins, just stacking them and stacking them. And so I looked up Hart Island, and for years, anyone that dies in New York City, it's unclaimed, unwanted, or not unwanted, unclaimed or what's the word they used? Unknown or unclaimed, or even if a family just can't afford a private burial, they can opt for a city burial and the city will deal with the body from them. But for years now, they take all of these corpses and bury them on Hart Island, and it's nicknamed the Island of Lost Souls. And even before the COVID disaster, there was already over 1 million people buried there. Just the unknown and the unclaimed. And I don't know, reading into it, that's where I want to be buried. Send me to Hart Island. Truly the end of the line. I want to be with the unclaimed and the unknowns. But listen to this island. Here's the history of it. So way, way back, a tribe, I think called the Sinoe, there's a very good chance I'm pronouncing that offensively wrong, but I think the Sinoe Indians way, way back, like in the 1800s, lived on it. And the first piece of information that is about Hart Island, the Island of Lost Souls, is there would be unlicensed bare-knuckle boxing fights, and they said thousands of people would show up and watch and bet, and man, that has to be a scene. But the island is tiny, and it's way uptown off the northeast Bronx in the ocean, this little tiny horrifying island. It's 1 mile long and only 0.3 miles wide. So short, skinny little island in the middle of the ocean off the northeast Bronx. And so the first thing were these underground fights. And then in 1864, or no, I'm sorry. In 1864, a man named Pell, an English physician bought it, and it was in his family for a while. He died. His son has had it for a while. Then they sold it. It bounced around some rich people for a while, and at some point, New York City acquired it. The first public use was a training for the United States troops, and then the second use was a Civil War prison camp. So a war prison camp, and then after that it was a psychiatric institution. And if there was ever a creepy little island for a psychiatric institution, this was it. It reminds me of the remember Shutter Island with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they used some effect to make that island that they were on look more bleak and scary. And this island looks like that without the effect. And so it was a psychiatric institution, and then it was a tuberculosis sanitarium. A little bit depressing. And then after that, it became a potter's field, so a mass burial. So like I said, anyone homeless that dies in New York City, or just any unknown or unclaimed soul. And New York City is filled with unknown and unclaimed. So then it became a mass burial, and then it became a homeless shelter, and then it became a boys' reformatory, which always is just filled with horrors and nightmares. And then it became a jail, and then it became a drug rehab center. And then someone put in permits after that. So just think, at this point, it's been a mass burial for the unknown and unclaimed. It's been a psychiatric institution. It's been a sanitarium for people that have tuberculosis, and then some guy puts in a permit to build an amusement park on it. It's just like, welcome to the Hart Island Carnival, where you've never left. I just picture riding a carousel on like right above the mass burial, just like, and it's like, Dad, why can't we go to the good amusement park, Six Flags? And he's like, this one's cheaper. Just, you're fine. It's like, Dad, this is creepy. So then it was almost an amusement park, which if they would have built an amusement park, probably by now it would have been defunct and run down, which probably would have added even more to the scary. Because right now, all the buildings on it are dilapidated. There's been a prison on it. So after the amusement park, it was a Cold War. It stored Cold War defense missiles, and then they built a prison on it. And then after the prison wasn't used anymore, they built a homeless shelter on it. And so now it's just a horrifying mass grave island that has a prison that's run down and an old insane asylum, and they say it doesn't even have power anymore. And I was thinking of like basically it copies The Shining, but I was thinking of like a screenplay where someone in New York loses their job, and they're trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do, and they're flipping through the newspaper, and they see a job opportunity of like caretaker of Hart Island. And they go there, and just everything unfolds, you know. I was also laughing at the thought of, so that's where they're like I said, a lot of the COVID people, and I was laughing at the thought of every year on the anniversary of the COVID apex at the strike of midnight, the whole island goes full Thriller music video. Ba-na, da-na-na, ba-na-na-na. All right. Moving on. So, I guess I don't even know if this is worth telling, but so I know that this is a huge bummer of a time, right? This whole COVID nightmare. It's either the virus gets you or the flatlined economy does. And I've been a little bit bummed out, you know, going back and forth, trying not to be. I've also just haven't really gone anywhere in a month, which does weird things to you. But I think it's important to combat being bummed is to think about just things that you can be thankful for. Because I feel bad being bummed. I'm sitting around being bummed, like, man, this is a bummer. But some people have lost 4 people in their family to it. So I'm like, all right, I got what are some things that I am thankful for? And one of them, you guys, is the fact that we got into our new apartment, and we snuck in by the hair of our chinny chin chin. Let me set this up for you. We've had roommates for 10 years. 8 years ago, when I first moved to New York, I lived in Harlem on the couch of a 3-bedroom apartment that 5 people lived in. So imagine going through imagine if the COVID disaster happened and that's where I was, living on the couch with 4 other people in a tiny apartment. And so I went from Harlem on a couch to East Village in a 2-bedroom with 3 other people. And then I was out to Brooklyn in my old apartment where you guys saw. And when I first moved into that apartment, that one was a 3-bedroom, and there was 3 of us dudes in there. And then one guy moved out of that apartment. We kind of finagled it so we didn't have to get another roommate. So it was a 2-bedroom. That 1 bedroom was open, and that open bedroom was the room I turned into the True Crime Loser studio. So for years, it was me and another dude in that 3-bedroom, and then 4 years ago, I started dating my girlfriend, and so for a year, I lived in her apartment with her. I still had my room in the other apartment, but she had at least 1 roommate in that apartment. And then when her lease ran out in that apartment, we moved into my apartment, the 3-bedroom with the guy the empty room that I used as a True Crime Loser room. I moved my girlfriend into that apartment, which, to be honest, that roommate never really forgave me for that. I don't think that he wanted to live with a couple, but what are you going to do? So then we lived in that apartment for 2 years with, me and my girlfriend and then that other guy. And then just pure luck. So for 10 years, roommates and just pure luck of 1 month before the whole world shuts down, I snuck in, and it's just us here. So think about that. So every time that I get bummed about this whole thing, or I'm worrying like, well, I hope my mom, who doesn't really have an immune system because she has rheumatoid arthritis, every time I'm like, God, this is a bummer. We can't do anything. Everything I had planned for this year is on hold. I don't want my mom to die. I think to myself, man, at least I just snuck in. We loved our new apartment. I got the backyard with a grill. I got this basement too, which helps a lot because my girlfriend's a teacher. And so now they're teaching remotely. So in the mornings, she's got a couple hours of talking to her whole class on Zoom. And then they have to do like a staff meeting. And the internet works the best in that one room where my True Crime Loser set up in the apartment. So just having the basement to come down to is killer. And this is a tough time for roommates, especially here in New York. A lot of people are living in adult roommate situations. And, if you're not on the same page with how worried you are with COVID or what you think the strategy is, there can be some tension. Or if they're bringing, my girlfriend really didn't want me to tell this story, but I'm just going to tell you guys. That's why I stuffed it way back in the episode. But so my girlfriend has this friend, right? Possibly one of her best friends for years now. And way back when I first met her, I think we went out to dinner with her and her husband. And anyway, I first met her after we went out to dinner and got a drink or whatever it was. We say goodbye to him. So good to meet you. Yeah, shaking hands with her husband. So great. All right. Yeah, let's do this again sometime soon. We'll see you later. As soon as they left and we were around the corner and away from them, I turned to my girlfriend and I was like, okay, at some point, their marriage is going to fall apart. And when that happens, she cannot stay with us. And my girlfriend was just totally blindsided by that. Like, wait, what do you mean their marriage is, why do you say that? And I was like, just trust me. At some point, their marriage is going to end, and promise me that she is never going to stay with us. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, promise me that she will never stay with us. And she goes, I don't understand. And I don't even know how to explain it. I just sensed a little bit of a quality, maybe like a little tad of a lizard quality, just something a little bit. And so, like I said, my girlfriend's like, what? And I was just like, promise me. Any one of your other friends bottoms out in life and they need to stay with us for a couple days, but this woman, please promise she will never stay with us. And it's like, okay, I promise. And so, sure enough, fast forward a year or two later, their marriage fell apart. This is one of my best calls, I think, that I've ever had. Their marriage falls apart. She needs a place to stay. I had already, thank God, established my position on the whole thing, so it wasn't even an option. And so where she ended up going to stay was my girlfriend and her. They have a little friend group. She went to stay with the friend, and there isn't an extra bedroom in that apartment, so she is paying like a fraction of the rent to stay in a little part of the living room, right? And this is just an example of why this time would just be hard to share with adult roommates. So the whole COVID thing starts going, right? Really heating up here in New York City, and everyone starts to hunker down. And the friend that it's her apartment that she took her in basically said like, hey, the woman that the marriage, sorry, this is getting confusing. The woman that the marriage fell apart and is now living in the living room is dating a new guy. And I've heard this a lot for people right now in New York, that it's like, I'm living with a roommate, but I don't want the boyfriend or whoever my roommate is dating, I don't want them to come over during this time. It's like, what if, why am I even quarantining and trying to be safe if just the boyfriend of the roommate is going to come over and get us all sick, or, who knows? And so just stress. And so the person that took her in was like, hey, I know this kind of sucks, but it's just, I'm a little bit freaked out, and I'm a little bit, I'm just a little bit freaked out. So is it okay if it's just us in the apartment and you don't bring over the new boyfriend? And then that's a tough thing to say to a roommate too. Just like, the person you're dating, can you not be around them in this scary time? And so that didn't work. So then the woman that was living in the living room disappeared, and she didn't know where she was. And the woman that took her in went and volunteered to hand out food to give to kids that, since school's canceled, if there's a lot of kids that rely on school for their lunches. So she went and volunteered to give out lunches, and a few days later was feeling all symptomatic and went to grab her thermometer to see if she had a temperature, and the thermometer was gone. And so the roommate disappeared, and the thermometer was gone, and she finally gets a hold of her, and she was like, yeah, we left, we fled to South Carolina. And she was like, really? Like, you should have told me. And, oh yeah, by the way, I need to take my temperature. Do you know where the thermometer is? And she's like, I took the thermometer, I'm sorry, can you go to, CVS and buy another one? Which you couldn't. All of the thermometers were gone. So it's not that big of stealing the thermometer isn't that bad just during a normal time. But during this time of a crisis where you got to check your temperature, and she was feeling, to swipe someone's thermometer and just disappear I pretty much, I guess the end of the story is I felt really validated by my like promise me. You know, to steal from a friend during a crisis really, I think, solidified that whatever I felt was right about her, you know? I just knew something. And I still like her, you know? If she's listening to this, I enjoy hanging out with her. It's just staying in my apartment. All right. Well, I hope that last part was interesting. Let me see. Do I have anything else? Um, I think one of my friends got COVID. I was talking to him, and he said that this is, I think, the closest of anyone around me that's got it. I talked to one of my buddies, and he said that he was hanging out with some girl. They hung out for like 8 days straight, and then she started showing symptoms, and then her roommate has really bad asthma, so the one that was showing symptoms, went and got tested, and sure enough it was positive, and he had been around her, and then he got really sick for 4 or 5 days, and luckily didn't have to go to the hospital or anything. But other than that, a few people my girlfriend works with, someone lost like their mom or dad, but they were in their 90s. But it's a crazy time. And like I said, it's a bummer. I've been trying to stay good attitude, but just the whole thing, like I said, it's like, all right, I'm worried about my family, and as soon as I don't have to worry about that, then it's the flatlined economy, and then if after I peter out worrying about that, then it's back to my family. And anyway, I'm just really excited for everything to get back to as normal as possible. And yeah, but at least we have each other. I'm really thankful that I have this channel. You know, I can't say enough for everybody that supports it in every way that is possible to support it. So thank you so much. I hope you're having a good day. Stay strong. I'll see you next time. Why? Stiving why.